critically analyzing global affairs. The Muckrakers on today's News Talk, TNT.
Well, hello and a very warm welcome to the Muckrakers with me, Andrew Eborn. And in a world where countless injustices remain in the shadows, it's our mission to bring these critical issues into the spotlight. Our commitment is to illuminate the overlooked and fight for those who battle in silence. On June the 14th, 2017, a devastating fire erupted in the 24-storey Grenfell Tower in North Kensington, just up the road from me. And for about 60 harrowing hours, flames engulfed the building, claiming 70 lives on that fateful night, with 2 more succumbing to injuries later in hospital. 223 managed to escape the inferno. But this tragedy stands as the deadliest structural fire in the United Kingdom since the 1988 Piper Alpha oil platform disaster, and the worst residential fire since the German bombings of World War II. On the 15th of June 2017, the then Prime Minister Theresa May announced a public inquiry into the Grenfell Tower fire. The final report from this inquiry is set to be published on September the 4th. As we mark this, the 7th anniversary of this horrific event, many affected by the Grenfell Tower fire feel abandoned, voicing concerns of inadequate support. Survivors and residents describe themselves as walking unhealed, a testament to the enduring scars left by that night. Today, we extend our deepest sympathies to the bereaved, the survivors, and all whose lives were forever altered by this disaster. Here on the Muckrakers, we pledge to continue tackling the most pressing and controversial news issues of our time. Our mission is to provide more light and less heat in our unwavering quest to uncover the truth. Stay with us as we shine a light where others won't. Well, today we're going to discuss the latest situation in the Middle East with a focus on the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Yesterday, for the first time, the United Nations has added Israel's armed security forces, Hamas, and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad militant group to its list of offenders for violating children's rights. The latest UN report finds Israeli forces responsible for 5,698 violations, including the killing and maiming of children and attacks on schools and hospitals. Harrowing stuff. I'm going to be discussing all of that with my guests, but I'd also like to hear from you. This is how you can get in touch.
Thanks for listening to us. Now we want to listen to you. Our lines are open from the U.S. and Canada. Call 1-888-201-6425. From the UK, call 033-0024-1026. And from Australia and New Zealand, call 1-800-670-310. Free speech is alive and well on today's News Talk, TNT Radio.
Well, welcome back indeed, and I'd love to hear from you. Do get in touch if you've got any thoughts on the topics we talk about today, or indeed if you want to talk about anything completely different. Your voice is very important. Well, today the Muckrakers is made up of me, Andrew Eborn, and also David Miller, and I think along the way, while Gallery sorted out a few surprise guests, we'll find out as the show goes along. Let me first of all talk about David, who is one of the world's leading academic experts on Islamophobia. He also specializes in the analysis of state and corporate lobbying. He was Professor of Political Sociology at the University of Bristol until his sacking in October 2021. David was previously Professor of Sociology at the University of Bath and University of Strathclyde, and he set up the UK lobbying watchdog Spinwatch. David, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I want to touch on, first of all, I know you've got some strong views before we look at Gaza on Grenfell. What would you like to say?
Well, I mean, Grenfell obviously was at one level the result of a kind of corporate government manslaughter, in the sense that they had deliberately liberalised the safety regulations, and the cladding was clearly inflammable and caused many more deaths than would have been the case otherwise if they'd had a proper fire safety policy, etc. So yes, of course, it's a disaster about neoliberal capitalism. But let's also remember that there's a strong question here about the involvement of Zionists in this whole affair. And one of the things that happened in relation to this, the controversy around that, was that on the Quds Day, the annual Quds Day demonstration, that's the Jerusalem Day demonstration, which was held in London, one of the leaders of the march a few years ago referred to Zionists as being involved in Grenfell, and he was then taken to he was a pharmacist, he was taken to his regulatory body and accused of anti-Semitism and all this kind of thing. But actually, of course, Zionists were very heavily involved in Grenfell, in the sense both of the government minister who was overseeing fire safety and housing, Lord Pickles, who of course is a very prominent member of Conservative Friends of Israel, but also in the sense that Paul Singer, the billionaire from BlackRock, his company, Elliott Management, held the shares, the largest proportion of shares in Arconic, which was the company which provided the cladding. So the point I would make about this is that people think that the Israel lobby or the Zionists is just a discrete thing which focuses on a problem which focuses on attempting to misunderstand what's happening in Gaza and attempting to blind us to what's happening in Gaza. But actually, the Zionists are quite heavily embedded in the business class in the UK and indeed, of course, in the US, and have actual concrete interests in the way in which domestic policy, including something as apparently arcane as housing safety, and people don't understand that. And so that's one of the things I wanted to say about this, because of course that links us on to the question of Gaza, because we'll come on to talk about the way in which Zionist organizations, including people who are heavily embedded amongst the billionaire class, are able to provide the wherewithal, including financial resources, to continue and help to support the ongoing genocide in Gaza. So I just wanted to make that point on this anniversary, that